don't know who's in charge.
We'll ask them. Hi. So sorry, thank you. I'm going to give it to you right now. I do. There we go. This is better. Some of them are pre-cut, and then I also have some knives. Okay. All that, right?
Now the joke with the knife.
Okay. Cheryl, I'm gonna ask if we can put these back because the sun is baking.
Did you want to do the Korea also?
Move back, don't worry.
We'll just move the chairs. I don't know if they're going to be.
What is that?
No, just the chairs. So we just have
So
this.
it's
Let me
here.
tear
Yeah,
our thing, but they have,
no, I know
you
what
can tear a piece
I
of
gotcha.
material
Okay.
and
I'm
pin it
sorry.
to your
So it's Cheryl.
From your shirt.
No, they have
Not
a
Oh, okay.
Hold on.
I'm just trying to get the, the order.
Can we, this is in the sun, so we want to move this to the back.
Well,
We
he
could
said-
even
he
move
said-
it a little over off
Yeah,
to the
move it
side if
over
that's
here. Okay.
if you like that.
Or is it okay? We start on the second row.
You can sit anywhere you want. Yeah, we could even move these back a little bit so you can be more in the front.
Move these up a little bit.
Real plan, just move it in that position.
Oh, thank you. What?
Yeah. Okay. Korea.
I tend to find scissors are a little better over there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
So. coupling.
Oh, do you want to move up here? Or is it
Sure.
Thank you. Justin, you got that English? It doesn't touch. Okay.
So what? And a lot. You get yourself comfortable.
It's just she was just shows. Yeah. About the daughters on it. I can't remember who lives where. I know somebody's in Florida.
He's in Florida. No, in Oregon.
And wasn't the Florida person moving?
She
Oh,
was. I was in Florida.
That's right.
Moved to Oregon.
Where in Oregon?
Yamhill County, Willamette Valley area. I'm here the coast.
My closest friends and study partners is
Oh, okay.
You just have to pray when you feel it's not honest.
What did you say? You mind he spoke about or just talked?
You did. And you're the one who found the yeah, in the context of a conversation about what love is. Sometimes it's actions.
No, it's mhm. Although I think he doesn't like to believe anybody. So he might have been doing a lot worse than this community.
No, he just got his ears checked and
He just got new glasses.
we were talking
Oh.
about, getting older and getting our ears checked. And over the weekend on Sunday, he sent the doctor that he saw.
Welcome, everyone. We're about to get started. Just a friendly reminder to silence your cell phones. Yes, sir. We're all ready.
Thank you, everyone, for being here as we remember Kenneth Fradkin, our Chaim Shabtai ben Meir of Malka, I'd like to ask Joe Friedman to come up, please, and recite Tehillim Paragon.
אשרי האיש אשר לא הלך בעצת רשעים, ובדרך חטאים לא עמד, במושב לצים לא ישב, כי אם בתורת אדוני חפצו, בתורתו יגע יומם ולילה. והיה כעץ שתול על פלגי מים, אשר פריו ייתן בעיתו, ועליהו לא ייבול, וכל אשר יעשה יצליח. לא כן הרשעים, כי אם כמוץ אשר תדפנו רוח. על כן לא יקומו רשעים במשפט, וחטאים בעדת צדיקים. כי יודע אדוני דרך צדיקים, ודרך רשעים טובים.
I ask Ari Fisher to please come up and recite Tehillim Parak Chaf Gimel.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בן עושתך ירביצני, על מי מנוחס ינהלני. נפשי ישובב ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צלמוות לא אירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבתך משענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צוררי, ישנת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה, אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ישבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
It's appropriate that we start with Psalms this morning because for Rabbi, Cantor, Kenneth Fradkin, music was such an integral part of his life. I'd like to invite now members of the family to offer their reflections, starting with his oldest daughter, Sharon.
First, I want to start with some thank yous. I want to thank my sisters for making the trip and being here with me. I wish we were together for happier times, but it's comforting to be together during difficult times such as this one. I want to also give thanks to Rabbi for helping us navigate this process, and Rabbi Stephen for engaging my dad with as many things as possible at Kavod, where he has been living for the last couple of years. He got so much enjoyment these last few weeks with the Kavod Shul reopening. So thank you. My mother-in-law's here. I know this wasn't the trip you had planned, but I appreciate that you are here. Thank you to Andrea and Joe for all the running around and support you give us always in good times and hard times. Thank you to our amazing Denver community of friends for rallying and providing us with such yummy meals and sending the most kind texts and calling and voicemails. And I may not have responded to all of those yet, but each text and each voicemail was so comforting to me the last couple of days. And I'm also so grateful for all of you and that you're here today. So thank you for being here. Thank you to our family and friends for joining via the YouTube live stream. I know a lot of you wanted to be here in person, but I'm glad you're able to be here through the interwebs. Thank you to my kids for all the extra hugs and kisses. And last but not least, thank you, David, for being my rock. The last few days, I'm beyond grateful for what you've done. The support and hugs you've given me, literally holding me up mentally and physically. So on to my dad. So I thought my dad was going to live forever. Maybe every child feels that way. When I received the phone call on Monday at 1 p.m., I was not prepared for what they were telling me. And in typical Cheryl fashion, I did not believe what they were saying. I kept saying, "Are you sure? Are you sure you're in Ken Fradkin's apartment? Because I just saw him 2 days ago and he moved to a new apartment recently." I did go to his apartment for closure and to see things with my own eyes, and sadly it was the truth. I felt very unprepared for the next few hours of having to make a ton of decisions, which, as most of you know, is not my strongest of skills. All I can say is thanks, Dad, for being so organized, because that helped a ton. My dad has always been a constant presence in my life, and he was a very good father, providing unconditional love and support. I felt very close to him. As a teenager, my dad was considered a super chill dad. He didn't have any rules or restrictions and basically let me do what I wanted, which in a backwards way taught me independence and responsibility at a pretty young age. He didn't always express his love in words, but he always did in action. When I asked him 3-ish years ago to move to Denver so he could have a better quality of life and he could be closer to our family, he got right on it and started researching his options. It wasn't easy for him in his advanced Parkinson's condition, but he did it. And he recently told me that his burial plot was in sunny Key Largo, Florida. I said, "Really? You want me to fly your body to Florida? And then every time I want to visit your grave, I have to go to Florida?" He said, "No problem." And within weeks, he sold his plot and started researching everything here. There's lots of examples, but one that came to mind was, when I was younger and I told him I wanted to go to Israel for a gap year. And then a few years later, I wanted to go back to Hebrew University. He helped me make that happen and supported me. A more recent story, he bought a Wii after playing with some friends at Kavod. I said, "Oh, that's so fun. Jacob always wanted one." And we never got him one. And then a few weeks later, my dad shows up with a Wii for Jacob, installed it, and played bowling and baseball for hours with him, which was really helpful because Jacob had no camp that week. And my dad also showed his love by getting really thoughtful gifts. On the day he died, one of those gifts arrived for Maya, and it was a leather-bound journal for her to take to Israel. So thank you, Daddy, for your thoughtful gifts and always supporting me. Since most of you have just started to really get to know my dad, I thought I'd give a very brief history of his life. He was a Christmas baby. He was born on December 25th, 1951. We were planning to celebrate his 70th birthday this coming December. He was born in Brooklyn, New York. And when he was about 1 year old, his parents had enough of the city and moved to Monticello, upstate New York, to run an egg farm. His grandpa Sam came with them and ran a millionaire using the Fradkin family Torah, which was written by my dad's possibly another great grandfather, Binyamin, in Russia. And my dad went to the only Jewish day school that was there, but there was no high school. So my dad was really determined to continue his Jewish education at the Yeshiva University High School in New York. So the family packed up and moved to Riverdale. He continued his college education at YU, and then upon graduating, he moved to Fairfield, Connecticut to be the chazan at the shul there, where he continued to be the chazan for the first 15 years or so of my life. He had such a beautiful voice, and I will forever miss his davening, and especially his Kodesh. He also was a very kind and patient. He had also a very kind and patient neshama. He was always drawn to all aspects of Judaism. Judaism and Jewish traditions were his lifeblood. Eventually, he moved on from Chazonas and got smicha. And he then became a rabbi at various schools on the East Coast, one in Rochester, Queens, then Baldwin, Long Island, and then New Jersey. He also loved Shlomo Carlebach's music and stories. Oh, and then my sisters helped me remember this as well, but he also had many other careers along the way. He had a security alarm business, he became a real estate broker, he owned an army surplus store at some point, and most recently, and I just learned this from kind of all this paperwork I had to do the last couple of days, he referred to his last job as a life enrichment assistant, which was a job that he had in Florida in a senior living place there, helping out with their programming. He was very good at reinventing his career and was always able to support himself. As some of you know, also, he had a passion for food. He was the good cook in our family. He made all of the amazing brisket, spare ribs, lamb chops, and he really enjoyed to eat them just as much as he enjoyed to cook them. He was also very handy, resourceful, and he was able to handle whatever life threw at him. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's in his early 50s and quickly embraced his disease and became very active with the local Parkinson's classes, kickboxing, yoga, the organizations, and you name it. And he referred to himself as a Parky. He really just embraced it. One of the many joys of having him in Denver the last 2 years was being able to cook for him each weekend on the holidays. He would join us for Shabbos lunch every week. He was also very independent and never wanted to burden his children. Dad, I just want you to know, you were never a burden. I felt it was an honor and privilege to do any of the small things you let me do. And they're all pretty small things, but preparing plates of food for first, for seconds, and sometimes thirds. You let me carry your bag, and this was a super heavy shoulder bag with like 8 sets of keys and wallets and 3 phones and all your pills and water. And a few times you even let me help you with your shoes. Dad, Grandpa Ken, as we were recently called by all of us, I know your body was starting to be a huge challenge for you, and I believe that you're in a better place now, feeling free from the burdens of your disease. Just like you carried the Jewish torch from your parents' generation to mine, and will God willing to do the same. Your legacy will live on in all 3 of your children, your 7 grandchildren, and the Torah you handed down to me, and the strong history that comes along with that Torah. We thought it would be very appropriate to wrap your body in beautiful purple tallis that the Torah has been wrapped in for the last 20 to 30 years, and probably more. I hope that brings some comfort to you. Thank you, Daddy. Thank you, Daddy, for everything you've given me and taught me over the years. I'm so grateful that you're my dad. I love you too, and back will miss your constant presence in our lives so very much. I wish for you that your soul can rest in peace. It goes directly to heaven. Your neshama should have Aliyah, and that you will be joined by your parents and all of your relatives in heaven, and you can watch over us. We have so many memories of you over the years, and I know you deserve to be a blessing for all of us.
We'll ask Alana.
Thank you, Cheryl. That was wonderful. I wish I was there, holding your hand and telling you that I love you. You have to be by yourself. I also thought you'd be around. I also thought you'd be around much longer, so I was very shocked. My heart is really heavy and hurting. And I thought I just did something weird. Okay. I will miss our conversations about food, the beach, and always how Jonah and Noah are doing and their milestones. I will miss your laugh. You had such a great laugh. I will miss your jokes. Your sense of humor was so crazy. Sometimes that crazy humor flies out of my mouth with no filter. And I think to myself, did I just say that? And my husband, he
He thinks it's so funny. And he reminds me that I get that from you. You were so much fun growing up, from the games we played, going camping, to the costumes, especially the gorilla costume. How was I not afraid of that costume? It was so scary. The fun NCSY weekends that I got to experience at a young age. Being like the baby around all these teenagers and adults. It was so much fun. Oh my gosh. You were always there for me, and you were always there for me and saved me a couple times from what could have been a bad situation. Somehow you knew it was best for me, and I'm so thankful for that. Just knowing you would be there, just knowing that you would be there was a huge gift in my life. You worked very hard to provide for us. And I'm forever appreciative and grateful. You loved to give us your attention, which meant the world to us. You allowed us to be ourselves and find our way with very little restrictions, supporting and encouraging us in everything we wanted to do. You were a gentle soul, a strong dad with a big heart, and a lot of patience. I know your girls and grandkids today, and it's comforting. It's comforting to know that you're free of pain and illness. I love you always and forever, and I wanted to thank you all for being here. And I wanted to thank Cheryl and David for being with him the last years of his life, and all the arrangements that you had to make, which is very hard.
Invite Tanya to say
Thank you for being here. Thank you, Cheryl and David, for everything you did the last couple of days. I guess I was his baby, and when I was born, my mom couldn't hold me, so my dad was the first parent I met and got to cuddle me and hold me, and I think it's only fitting that I'm the last one to bid him farewell. Dad, as painful and overwhelming the heartbreak is for having lost you too soon, the thankfulness I feel for getting to have you for my dad outweighs it all. I want to thank you for being there for me. You were always kind and gentle and forgiving. You always made me feel safe and loved. You were always there for me anytime I needed you, always. You taught me that you can start over and be successful and not be afraid of change. You also taught me to take it easy and enjoy life. I was so happy when you moved to Virginia to live near me. I watched you start a new career and become a successful real estate broker. I will cherish all those wonderful times we had together for all those years. When you decided to move to Florida, I was so happy, and so were you. I saw the joy come back in your eyes when you started to work part-time, renovate your condo, and make friends. We got to share some of the happiest moments of my life together. You were there when I brought my daughter Livy and Leo home, and my son Leo home, and you were there for all their younger years. I saw how much happiness they
brought to you. You created such a strong bond with them. Livy loves her puppy and often asks about you. When she does something that she's really proud of, she asks me to tell you or to take a picture and send it to you. You were always there to listen, support, and encourage me. And I don't think I ever said that enough, but you really were. I'm proud to have you as my father and friend. I love you forever and ever. You will be in my thoughts daily, and I will miss you more than you know. I imagine you're at peace, free from the disease that has been such a burden to you for the last 15 years. I wish you well in your new adventure and hope one day we cross paths again. Bye, Dad, I love you.
Thank you so much. The great joys in the Torah at the end of the book of Bereshit is that Yaakov comes to see his grandchildren, spend great time with not just his own children, but his grandchildren. It certainly sounds like that was something that thankfully Ken had for many years, and thus gives me great honor to have Maya, who followed by Ruby, to offer some words about their grandfather.
We are so glad that we got to spend more time with you these past few years when we moved to Denver. It was always so nice having you over for Shabbos meals and catching up with you. You always brought over a newspaper and sometimes an art activity, and you told us about something interesting you learned in a video, or that you read in an article, and I look forward to hearing about it every week. Other memories we have with you are when you came to visit. We always used to watch So You Think You Can Dance and America's Got Talent, and we would get so invested in the contestants. You always told me to follow my neshama because it will tell me what's right and lead me in the right direction, and I promise to do my best to do all that you taught me.
Thank you for all of those times that you took mine and bowl. We would always have so much fun together. Although we did not get the chance to bowl with you again, but this time when the new Wii brought us, whenever I played bowling on the Wii, I would be thinking. Another memory I have of you is every time you come to our house for Shabbos, you have some new art activity for me to try. You have given me sketchbooks, fancy pencils, full coloring books, and a bordering kit, and more. You cared so much about how I loved art, so you brought me crafts that you thought I would like. You gave me the opportunity to be creative. That's how caring you were. We miss you so much, and we'll always cherish our memories with you.
For the last couple of years after Ken moved to Denver, he had the joy of having a colleague to minister with, to work with, and to be part of his life. And so we asked Rabbi Stephen to come up and offer some. Thank you, Rabbi Mark.
I think with all these words, since Shlomo Carlebach's tunes were mentioned, I want to start with that. Da 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 Shalom. Yes, I'm Rabbi Stephen Booth Nadav, the chaplain at Kavod Senior Life. A little postcard appeared on Ken's door recently with a Rabbi Nachman quote on it that I had never seen before. It says, "The day you were born is the day God decided that the world cannot exist without you." The day you were born is the day God decided the world could not exist without you. So how is it that it was determined that the world could live without Ken today? It seems so wrong and not possible. And he was so looking forward to living, even with all of his challenges. And maybe, but maybe, just maybe, the world can now exist because Ken Fradkin lived in it. He lived and he loved and he learned and he raised a family and he served the Jewish people and he left a model of how to live, how to be a mensch, a Jew. Ubitzor hachaim, his soul is bound up with the bond of life and is still with us. I could say much about my brief time with Ken, with Rabbi Ken. By the way, he didn't call himself Rabbi Ken at Kavod. He did not make a big deal out of that. How he called me from Florida to learn about Kavod and to chat about his situation and Denver, and how he came very quickly to be a very special part of our community. How he sang. People were blown away anytime he started to sing. Our community loved to hear him sing Kiddush on Friday night, which they only got to hear recently, right? Because we only reopened our dining room like a month ago. Or anything that he felt he could add to any of our services. But I will never forget how he sang El Malei Rachim for Yisker with such passion, with real tears. Real tears. Such dveikut most of us can only dream of. His heart and the heart of the world were one. He also had a tremendous determination to live. In the face of Parkinson's and all of its ravages, I never heard him complain. As the physical plane got harder and harder for him, he kept figuring out ways to function, to live, to connect with others, to get around. I'll never forget, one day, all of a sudden, there he is zooming by me in the lobby on a scooter with a helmet on. How'd that happen? Nothing was going to stop this guy. Nothing. Honestly, if it were me, I might have just despaired from such challenges, but he just kept figuring out what he needed to do to keep living his life and to keep moving and keep doing. A true model for not giving up and for living as fully as we can. Last week, he spoke of the wonders of YouTube, how he could learn and how he could find and learn almost anything there. He was so excited and thankful to be able to keep learning. And he often spoke of his family and his love and his joy with them. His Shabbases with you guys here, his time in Florida and Virginia, rich in daughters. But for now, I'm just going to share one little piece. Last Friday night at a lovely Kabbalat Shabbat service in the shul down the hall from his apartment on Tu B'Av, we talked about love and about the V'ahavta and what kind of love is being talked about there and whether love can be commanded. And we talked about how sometimes love is about words and other times more about actions. And he spoke of two experiences. First, he talked about when his mother started ending her conversation. Apparently this was not normal, he said, but all of a sudden his mother started ending her conversations with him by saying, "I love you." It shocked him. He didn't know what to do with it at first, as she had not always done that. But eventually he got used to it. And they said it to each other at the end of every phone call. And it was good. And if I remember correctly, he said he started doing it with his kids. and it became part of their conversations. And it was good. True love expressed in words. And then he talked about his daughter in Florida. It's a long story, but he gave us all the details of being about how you were at the beach and you open your car door and there's a diamond ring, and clearly it was an expensive one, and how you found, you saw a family down the way and was desperately tearing stuff out of their car, trying to find something. And she went up to them and said, did you lose something? And the woman said, yes, my diamond ring. And she gave it to her and said, here it is. And Ken said, look, my daughter's not all that religious, but she was day school trained and she just knows stuff. She knows what is right and how to show love even to strangers. Not so much with words, but with actions. And he spoke of how proud he was of her because of who she is and her actions. So he talked both about words and actions. So now I just have to say, I didn't plan on a whole eulogy here, and I'm not, as I would normally do, be looking for things to say about each family member, but you know those stories and you know how much he loved you. And I know, and you know, that he saw you and he loved you and he took great nafes in each of you. And you can carry that forward now and thus keep his spirit alive, and the world can endure.
We'll read the Shabbat, continuation of Moshe's long speech to his beloved, to his Jewish community, as they are on the precipice of entering into the land of Israel. And in these descriptions, Moshe describes how years earlier he went up and spent many days and many nights on Sinai, came down with 2 tablets with the Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 utterances written on them, and how he shattered them. And how in that aftermath, God said to him, come back up to the mountain. But this time when you come up, so lecha, you have to chisel out 2 tablets. You bring them up to me, and I will engrave upon them the words of the Aseret HaDibrot. And this idea of 2 different sets of tablets, the first made by God, the second, a partnership between God and Moshe, relates to many elements of Ken's life. First thing that it shows is sort of the determination. In a sense, on one hand, it's God's determination. Moshe saw that it was necessary to break the tablets, but God said, this is something the people need to have. And so there needs to be a second one. And as was spoken, and as Cheryl and David mentioned to me yesterday, he was somebody who was determined. Cheryl told me a story. He was raised in a Jewish way by his grandfather, who pushed Ken to be more involved in the Jewish community. It was almost like his grandfather was the first luchot and he was the second luchot, this child who would continue with the Torah, with the Judaism, passing it on. And the family went along, went to Jewish day school. They moved to Riverdale so that he could go to Jewish high school. And she told me this great story, how when he was young, they were in a very small apartment. They must have moved very quickly to Riverdale and funds were limited. And they had a very small apartment. He was sharing a room with his sister. It didn't work out too well. And so he went door to door to try to find them a bigger apartment, something that would be within their price budget. And he managed to do it. It was somebody who at a young age was determined. In the same way, in a sense here, that God was determined that the luchot go to the Jewish people. Secondly, there is this idea of partnership, right? God says the first ones I made, the second ones you made. You broke the first ones. You didn't have any skin in the game. maybe now that you helped make these second ones, maybe you'll be a little bit more reserved about breaking them. And this idea of the second is also the idea of doing things yourself. As was mentioned many times, Ken had to reconstitute himself. He had to figure out his ways to first be a cantor. And he was determined. Cheryl said that although he had a beautiful voice and he was wonderful singing and saying Kel Male, it was not something that was natural to him, and he had to work hard. But when he did work hard, like Moshe, making those stones, it was something that could become and did become beautiful and inspirational for so many people for so many years. And so that determination, that work hard, and that ability to reconstitute yourself, to figure out ways when something doesn't work, how to make it work better and how to make it work differently. A third idea in a lesson, David told me when he and Cheryl were first dating, and Ken was a rabbi in a small congregation, which they weren't really, people weren't very conversant. And he was so proud when his daughter's boyfriend came that he would be able to maybe lane or do the Haftorah or lead davening the same way God brought in Moshe and said, be part of this. That is what he saw as well with you at that stage and obviously for many years to come. And that was true in his professional life. I looked up last night and I saw old copies of newspapers from like 2002. I can't remember the year when he moved to Sussex County to the synagogue, to the small synagogue, and him talking about moving into the small synagogue. And these people also need to have a community and need to have a chance and need to have somebody who's going to be there for them and help guide them along in their path and share the tradition that is his, that is ours, with all of them. And one more idea related to these two sets of tablets. The Talmud speaks about how we had these two sets of tablets. One was a nice set made by Moshe, written by God. The other one, shards, destroyed. They were broken. And the Talmud says that the luchot, the shivrei luchot, munachim ba'aron. We take not only the good set, the second tablets that could have been read, but the shards of the first tablets, and we place them in the ark, the aron as well. And the Talmud says what this comes to teach is that when you have a scholar who unfortunately gets older, gets somewhat demented, is no longer the scholar they once were, you have to still keep them in the aron. You have to still keep them in the ark. You have to still show them the respect that even though life has come about and made things difficult, they're not any less. That is the Talmud lesson. And while it's not equated with your dad in the mental sense, it's very much in the physical sense. He was somebody who was stricken at an early age with a difficult disease. But the difference, I think, here is that he saw that he could remain in the ark. He could remain in the aron. He could continue to work. He could continue to serve, to help, to assist, to provide for people, even with the difficulties that he was facing. And I have a quote. This is from the Jewish press of Pinellas County. Excuse my lack of knowledge of how to pronounce that. And he wrote as follows, and this is from an article in 2011. I've spent most of my life ministering to the Jewish community and have learned a great deal from it. And I've achieved much satisfaction from the work. I've also learned that we have a responsibility to help less fortunate individuals in need in the greater human community, regardless of their religious or ethnic affiliations. Here we have somebody who's suffering, that most of us would say, woe is me, the difficulties. I'm a young man. Look what I have to face. But that was not who he was. He was somebody who saw that he could continue to help and to assist despite the difficulties. And it says in this article as well, he was instrumental in adding a yoga class and vocal aerobics class to the program's offerings, no matter where he was. His voice, his teaching, his care for others. Earlier in this week's parsha, and with this I'll conclude, Moshe says to the Jewish people, you're about to enter into the land of Israel. and you're going to be scared. You're going to be terrified. And ki tomar bilvadecha rabim hagoyim ha'elem mimeni echa ucha lahorisham. You're going to say, these people, I'm going in, look at them. They have these great walled cities. They have these great armies. How am I going to be able to defeat them? And Moshe says, Lo tira me'eh, don't be scared. And in a sense, that's the lesson for all of us from your father's, from your grandfather's life. There are always going to be hurdles. There are always going to be challenges. Life is going to be difficult, and it shouldn't be as difficult for any of us as the horrors that he went through. But he said, Lo tira mehem. I'm not scared of them. I will continue to live. I will continue to succeed. I will continue to give to others what I can, my voice, my ministering, my training, and sharing that. And so on this day, like many great links in our tradition, who both the Luchot and the Shivrei Luchot are in the Aron, we welcome, in a sense, also everlasting life. We're now going to do the burial, and after the burial, we will have the Kaddish and then the Kel Male. The custom is that we will try our hardest to shovel, and as I probably shared with many of you in the past, when you have a friend, a relative, a person who's sick, who is cold, you give them a blanket, you cover them. And that is, in a sense, what we are doing now. We are here together with the family, covering Ken for his final resting place. One last thing, the custom is not to pass the shovel from one to the other. We don't want to pass around death. So after you shovel, if you could just put it back in the dirt, and the next person will come and take it. We'll start with the family, and then everybody who would like to participate in the mitzvah, we would certainly appreciate it. No Kaddish. To me, the idea of Kaddish is not about that. It's sort of when a person dies, their second people on this planet. It's not just us who suffer. In a sense, some person has lost somebody through this Mourning together with God, saying, "You're the lost, you're the lost, let your name be." I will tell you what.
It was his gift.
And you could, no important feedback to what comes back to you.
You're missing the.
And that's what's going on.
Ask everybody to rise for Kaddish.
Yisgadal, Yisgadash, Mirabab,
Amen.
Yama, Vivrach, Yosei, Yamli, Mapuse, Victayifon, Yamifon, the call of Israel, but Arabs, Makari,
Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Yolam Umeil Maya.
Yisbarach, Yishtadach, Yipar, Yibraman, Yitadar, Yitale, Yitalal, Shemek, Min Cobra, Merkasa, the Shirasa, Tish, the Fasa, the Nefamasa, Dan, Yama,
Amen.
Hey, Shana, Rada, Mishnaya, the Fayim, Alim, the Valko, Israel, the Israel,
Amen.
Shalom, Shalom, Israel.
Amen. If you can remain standing, David is going to come forward and say the Kel Male. El Mole Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim. Hamsei Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei Shechina, Amalis Kadoshim Atorim, Gazor Rakim Azhiram, Es Nishmas Harab Chaim, Shabdai Ben Meir Malka, Shahalach Lolamo Bavur Shanachnim Mispalim, Bad Has Kars Nishmaso, Bagan Eden Tehim Nuchaso, Lachain Bal Harachim Yasirehu, the Caesar, Knafav Lolamim, Yitzrar Bitzar Hachayim, Es Nishmaso, Adonai Hu Nachlaso, V'yanuach B'Shalom Mishko, V'namar Amen. God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant proper repose on the sheltering wings of your presence. In the lofty levels of the holy, and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament. Unto the soul, Harav Chaim Shabdai Ben Meir Malka. If to his world, and for whose memory we pray, may his repose be in paradise. May the Master of compassion bring him under the cover of God's wings and bind his soul in the bond of life. May the Lord be his heritage, and may he repose on his resting place in peace. And let us respond, Amen. Seated. Rabbi Ken Fradkin, Rabbi Chaim Shabtai Ben Meir Malka, is survived by his sister Teddy, husband Gary Gross, by his daughter Cheryl and her husband David Friedman, Alana and her husband Justin Clark, Danya and her husband Mike Williams, and grandchildren Maya, Ruby, Jacob, Jonah, Noah, Livy, and Leah. Shiva will take place at the Friedman Home, 205 South Poplar, was sent out by email. Please take note that questions of vaccinations before you show up. We say to Harav Chaim Shabtai Ben Meir Malka, Lech b'shalom, v'tanuach b'shalom, v'tamod l'goralach l'keitz hayamim. Go in peace, rest in peace, and rise to your ultimate destiny at the end of days. If I could ask everybody, we're now going to make a corridor for the mourners to go through. We do it out over here back to their cars.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our